This is Down the Rabbit Hole, where we question the mysteries and nature of reality. I'm your host, Justin Perry. The quantum water heater. This experience nearly broke me. I haven't spoken of it to anyone ever, and I shy away from it, from even thinking about it, in much the same way that I imagine a survivor of abuse might flinch away from traumatic memories. I'm writing this now so that anyone else with a similar experience will know they are not alone. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18 years old. The apartment I rented did not have a washer and dryer included, so I would visit my parents every weekend to do laundry, chit-chat, and raid their fridge, which they tolerated with good-natured humor. Their basement was unfinished, and the laundry room was a small walled-off area that included a water heater and past that, a washer and dryer. Over the years, I must have been in that laundry room over 1,000 times. To this day, I can still picture it perfectly in my mind and remember how it smelled faintly of bounce dryer sheets and damp earth. I've numbered each unique memory that pertains to the event. 1. One Saturday during a weekly laundry visit to my parents' house, I was standing at their kitchen sink washing my hands. The water wouldn't get hot enough, so I remarked to my dad something along the lines of, "Hey, the hot water isn't working." He responded, "Yeah, we need to get a new water heater. The one we have probably came with the house." Later that day, I used the bathroom upstairs and went to wash my hands, and the water from the bathroom sink was ice cold. I remembered my earlier conversation with my dad and thought, yep, the water heater's broken. I didn't remember until I went to wash my hands. 3. Fast forward 7 days, and I'm once again pulling up to my parents' house. This time, there was a white HVAC van in the driveway. As I parked, the van drove away. I got a glimpse of a phone number of the van, and the first 3 numbers were that of a local area code, 4. I parked, knocked on my parents' door, greeted them, and said, "Looks like you got a new water heater." To which my mom agreed and said that the installers were very nice. 5. As soon as I walked into their house, I headed straight to the basement to get a start on my laundry. I opened the laundry room door, and there, right in front of me, was a brand new water heater. 6. I tapped my knuckles against it, expecting to hear a hollow sound, but instead, it sounded full. That makes sense, I thought. It's not empty. It's full of hot water, duh. I noticed that the new water heater was slightly larger than the old one, and I wondered how much more efficient it was compared to the old one. I then proceeded to start washing my laundry, and the rest of my visit passed without incident. Fast forward another 7 days, and I'm once again at my parents' house with my laundry basket in my hand. I remember I was pretty hungry that day, and I had planned to make use of my parents' refrigerator with absolutely shameless gluttony. I was already imagining the obscenely large sandwich I would make as soon as I got my laundry started. I walked downstairs and into the laundry room, and the first thing I noticed was that the old water heater was back. That's weird, I thought. Maybe there was an issue with the new one. I put my laundry to wash and headed back upstairs, where my dad was washing dishes and my mom was sitting at the kitchen table. This moment is seared into my memory, and even as I type this, the hairs on my arm and neck are standing up. I've read a lot of stories here, and most of you guys seem to handle unexplainable situations with mild confusion, but then you just kind of accept it. I did not. I lost my absolute shit. I'm talking DEFCON 1, Keter class, sky is falling, imminent apocalypse, full-blown, unmitigated terror. Someone better explain before I lose my mind. Levels of panic. Anyway, on to the story. I said to my mom, "Hey, what happened to the new water heater?" My mom looked over at me and said, "What new water heater?" I was like, "The new one you got last week." My dad looked over while still washing the dishes and said, "We never got a new water heater. Ours works fine." At this point, I felt a kind of incredulous grin on my face. I paused, looked at both of them, and said, "Okay, are you guys messing with me? I saw the new water heater last week." My mom's eyebrows went up in confusion and she asked, "Here?" My parents exchanged a look, silently confirming with each other that they didn't know what I was talking about. When I saw their shared look, I immediately felt my heart start to race and my ears start to feel hot. My first thought when I saw their look was, "It's happening." Immediately followed by, "Please, not like this." "Guys," I said, "I saw the water heater last week," I repeated. "In the basement. I touched it. I saw the installer guys. Mom, you said that they were nice, remember?" I gestured towards my mom, palm facing up, seeking the faintest glimmer of recognition. My mom looked confused, pursed her lips, and glanced at my dad again. My dad stopped doing the dishes and turned around to look at me directly. They didn't say anything, silently prompting me to continue. I heard my voice climb in pitch as my tone became more strident and emphatic. "Dad, you told me that you needed a new water heater 2 weeks ago." I was standing right there. I pointed to the sink for emphasis. "The water was cold, and you said the water heater wasn't working right, and it was probably the original one for the house, remember?" My dad gave a look, clearly trying to remember the conversation. I looked over at my mom, and her look of confusion had become one of concern. "Hey," I snapped at her, "don't look at me like that. I saw the water heater. I don't know how else to say it. I saw the water heater. It was downstairs and I tapped it with my knuckles, and it wasn't hollow because it had water in it." Both of my parents glanced at each other. I continued, "The week before that, I used the bathroom upstairs and the water was super cold because the water heater wasn't working. And then the next time I came over, I saw the HVAC guys in the driveway as they were leaving, and you said they were nice. And I went downstairs and I saw the new water heater." The looks on my parents' faces showed only bewilderment, and I trailed off to a stifled quietness. I had read the phrase, felt like ice water in my veins, but I had never experienced it until that very moment. My grandfather had Alzheimer's, and towards the end, he would tell the same story 5 times in a row, forgetting he had just told it, and looping around to the start because he would say a word that reminded him of the original story. My grandmother had dementia. I was terrified that the same fate awaited me. My grandparents' memory faded like the transmission on an old car. A lurch here, a shudder there, until ultimately it never worked right again. This was my greatest fear come to life, staring me right in the face. And I felt the strings of my very first panic attack begin to flutter in my chest. I turned around and ran, sprinted down the stairs to the basement, nearly tripping down the stairs in the process. I ran to the laundry room door and flung it open with an intensity that bordered on violence. There stood the old water heater. I touched the sides, running my fingers down the cold metal and the peeling warning stickers, seeking something, anything. Perhaps some evidence that it had been moved, that my parents were lying to me, that this was a misunderstanding. I considered that it would be a real jerk move on my parents to do that to me, and it would be extremely uncharacteristic of them as well, but it would be a welcome, even a blessed alternative to whatever is going on here. After reading the first few lines of the warning label, my eyes glanced to the very top of the water heater, and what I saw drove a hard wedge into my tiny crack that I felt forming in my sanity. There was dust on top of the water heater, undisturbed dust, an even layer of dust, no fingerprints, no blemishes, no nothing. Just a thin layer of dust that had clearly been building up over the course of years. This water heater hadn't been moved. The reality crashed into me like an ocean wave. Even if this was a cruel prank, the dust would have been disturbed. I don't know if this was some type of glitch in reality, but I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. And you just went down the rabbit hole.